keep others suspended in terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. Humans are creatures of habit with an insatiable need to see familiarity. Familiarity. I can't even say that shit. Familiarity in other people's actions. Your predictability gives them a sense of control. Turn the tables, be deliberately unpredictable. Behavior that seems to have no consistency or purpose will keep them off balance, and they will wear themselves out trying to explain your moves. Taken to an extreme, this strategy can intimidate and terrorize. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. The world is dangerous and enemies are everywhere. Everyone has to protect himself. A fortress seems the safest, but isolation exposes you to more dangers than it protects you from. It cuts you off from valuable information. It makes you conspicuous and an easy target. Better to circulate among people, find allies, mingle. You are shielded from your enemies by the crowd. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. There are many different kinds of people in the world, and you can never assume that everyone will react to your strategies in the same way. Deceive or outmaneuver some people, and they will spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge. They are wolves in lamb's clothing. Choose your victims and opponents carefully, then never offend or deceive the wrong person. That was Law 19. Do not commit to anyone. It is the fool who always rushes to take sides. Do not commit to any side or cause but yourself. By maintaining your independence, you become the master of others, playing people against one another, making them pursue you. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. No one likes feeling stupider than the next person. The trick then is to make your victims feel smart, and not just smart, but smarter than you are. Once convinced of this, they will never suspect that you may have ulterior motives. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. When you are weaker, never fight for honor's sake. Choose surrender instead. Surrender gives you time to recover, time to torment, irritate your conqueror, time to wait for his power to wane. Do not give the satisfaction of fighting and defeating you. Surrender first. By turning the other cheek, you infuriate and unsettle him. Make surrender a tool of power. Concentrate your forces. Conserve your forces and energies by keeping them concentrated at their strongest point. You gain more by finding a rich mine and mining it deeper than by flitting. Looks like flitting to me. Conserve your forces. Conserve your forces and energies by keeping them concentrated at their strongest point. You gain more by finding a rich mine and mining it deeper. And of course, my nose is running. Alright, so I was in the process of looking up the word flitting. So it means move swiftly and lightly. That's what flit means. Okay, so let's reread that. Law 23. Concentrate your forces. Conserve your forces and energy by keeping them concentrated at the strongest point. You gain more by finding a rich mine and mining it deeper than by flitting from one shallow mine to another. Intensity defeats extensity every time. I would assume extensity means a longer period of time. Let's just make sure. So let's see, right? Nope. Okay, on here it says like range. Let's see. The quality of having extension. Okay, so yeah, basically, longer period of time. Intensity defeats extensity every time. When looking for sources of power to elevate you, find the one key patron, the fat cow who will give you milk for a long time to come. I'm hearing a car alarm go off. It better not be mine. I guess I'll go check. Never mind, it just stopped. Alright, play the perfect courtier. The perfect courtier thrives in a world where everything revolves around power and political dexterity. He has mastered the art of indirection. He flatters, yields to superiors, and asserts power over others in the most oblique and graceful manner. Learn and apply the laws of courtiership, and there will be no limit to how far you can rise in the court. Do not accept the roles that society forces on you. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced and your character will seem larger than life. Keep your hands clean. You must you must seem a paragon of civility and efficiency. Your hands are never soiled by mistakes and nasty deeds. Maintain such a spotless appearance by using others as scapegoats and cat's paws to disguise your involvement. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult like following. People have an overwhelming desire to believe in something. Become the focal point of such desire by offering them a cause, a new faith to follow. Keep your words vague but full of promise. Emphasize enthusiasm over rationality and clear thinking. Give your new disciples rituals to perform. Ask them to make sacrifices on your behalf. In the absence of organized religion and grand causes, your new belief system will bring you untold power. Interaction with boldness. If you are unsure of a cause of action, do not attempt it. Your doubts and hesitations will infect your execution. There's a lot of words on here that are like on the edge of the book and they're all half cut off. Like almost every other line, they're halfway cut off. And I gotta figure out the word by looking at both sides. Your doubts and hesitations will affect your execution. Timidity is dangerous. Better to enter with boldness. Any mistakes you commit through audacity are easily corrected with more audacity. Everyone admires the bold, no one honors the timid. Plan all the way to the end. The ending is everything. Plan all the way to it. Taking into account all the possible consequences, obstacles, and twists of fortune that might reverse your hard work and give the glory to others. By planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances and you will know when to stop. Gently guide fortune and help determine the future by thinking far ahead. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. Your actions must seem natural and executed with ease. All the toil and practice that go into them, and also all the clever tricks, must be concealed. When you act effortlessly, as if you could do it much more. Avoid the temptation of revealing how hard you work. It only raises questions. Teach no one your tricks, or they will be used against you. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. The best deceptions are the ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Your victims feel they are in control, but are actually your puppets. Give people options that come out in your favor, whichever one they choose. Force them to make choices between the lesser of two evils, both of which serve your purpose. Put them in the horns of a dilemma. They are gored wherever they turn. Play to people's fantasies. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. Never appeal to truth in reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes from disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There is great power in tapping into fantasies of the masses. Play to people's fantasies. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Everyone has a weakness, a gap in the castle wall. That weakness is usually an insecurity, an uncontrollable emotion, or need. It can also be small, secret pleasure, either way. Once found, it is a thumbscrew you can turn to your advantage. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. The way you carry yourself will often determine how you are treated. In the long run, Appearing vulgar or common will make people disrespect you. For a king respects himself and inspires the same sentiment in others. By acting regally and confident of your powers, you make yourself seem destined to wear a crown. 35. Master the art of timing. Never seem to be in a hurry. Hurry betrays a lack of control over yourself and over time. Always seem patient, as if you know that everything will come to you eventually. Become a detective of the right moments. Sniff out the spirit of the times, the trends that will carry you to power. Learn to stand back when the time is not yet right, and to strike fiercely when it has reached fruition. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. By acknowledging by by acknowledging a petty problem, you give it existence and credibility. The more attention you pay an enemy, the stronger you make him. And a small mistake is often made worse and more visible when you try to fix it. It is sometimes best to leave things alone. If there is something you want but cannot have, show contempt for it. The less interest you reveal, the more superior you seem. Create compelling spectacles. Striking imagery and grand symbolism gestures create the aura of power. Everyone responds to them. Stage spectacles for those around you, then full of arresting visuals and radiant symbols that heighten your presence. Dazzled by appearances, no one will notice what you are really doing. Oh, shit. Think as you like, but behave like others. If you make a show of going against the times, flaunting your unconventional ideas and unorthodox ways, people will think that you only want attention and that you look down upon them. They will find a way to punish you for making them feel inferior. It is far safer to blend in and nurture the common touch. Share your originality only with tolerant friends and those who are sure to appreciate your uniqueness. Stir up waters to catch fish. Anger and emotion are strategically counterproductive. You must always stay calm and objective. But if you can make your enemies angry while staying calm yourself, you gain a decided advantage. Put your enemies off balance. Chink. Find the chink in their vanity through which you can rattle them and you hold the strings. Despise the free lunch. What is offered for free is dangerous. It usually involves either a trick or a hidden obligation. What has worth is worth paying for. By paying your own way, you stay clear of gratitude, guilt, and deceit. It is also often wise to pay the full price. There is no cutting corners with excellence. Be lavish with your money. Keep it circulating, for generosity is a sign and a magnet of power. Avoid stepping into great man's shoes. What happens first always appears better and more original than what comes after. If you succeed, a great man, or have a famous parent, you will have to accomplish double their achievements to outshine them. Do not get lost in their shadow or stuck in a past not of your own making. Establish your own main and identity by changing course. Slay the overbearing father, disparage his legacy, and gain power by shining in your own way. Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Trouble can often be traced to a single strong individual, the stirrer, the arrogant underling, the poisoner, the poisoner of goodwill. If you allow such people room to operate, others will succumb to their influence. Do not wait for the troubles they cause to multiply. Do not try to negotiate with them, they are irredeemable. Neutralize their influence by isolating or banishing them. Strike at the source of trouble, and the sheep will scatter. Work on the hearts and minds of others. Coercion. I don't know how to say this. Coercion. Sorensen. We're looking this up. The practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats. Coercion. Coercing? Coercing? It's not coercing. Let's click on the thing.
Coercion.
Coercion. Okay. Fuck, I forgot the definition already. Something about the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats. Okay. Coercion. I feel like that sounds pretty familiar, but whatever. Coercion creates a reaction that will eventually work. Okay. Work on the hearts and minds of others. That's the law 43. Coercion creates a reaction that will eventually work against you. You must seduce others in wanting to move in your direction. A person you have seduced becomes your loyal pawn, and the way to seduce others is to operate on their individual psychologies and weaknesses. Soften up the resistance by working on their emotions, playing on what they hold dear and what they fear. Ignore the hearts and minds of others, and they will grow to hate you. Law 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. The mirror reflects reality, but it is also the perfect tool for deception. When you mirror your enemies doing exactly as they do, they cannot figure out your strategy. The mirror effect mocks and humiliates them, making them overreact by holding up a mirror to their psyches. You seduce them with the illusion that you share their values. By holding up a mirror to their actions, you teach them a lesson. If you can resist the power of the mirror effect. Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. I think we can all say we got a lot of presidents that do that. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Everyone understands the need for change in the abstract, but on the day-to-day level, people are creatures of habit. Too much innovation is traumatic and will lead to revolt. If you are new to a position of power or an outsider trying to build a power base, make a show of respecting the old way of doing things. If change is necessary, make it feel like a gentle improvement on the past. We're on the last 3 laws before we enter the preface. Law 46. Never appear too perfect. Appearing better than others is always dangerous, but most dangerous of all is to appear to have no faults or weaknesses. Envy creates silent enemies. It is smart to occasionally display defects and admit to harmless vices in order to deflect envy and appear more human and approachable. Only gods and the dead can seem perfect with impunity. Do not go past the mark you aim for in victory. Learn when to stop. The moment of victory is often the moment of greatest peril. In the heat of victory, arrogance and overconfidence can push you past the goal you had aimed for. And by going too far, you make more enemies than you defeat. Do not allow success to go to your head. There is no substitute for strategy and careful planning. Set a goal, and when you reach it, stop. Assume formlessness. By taking a shape, by having a visible plan, you open yourself to attack. Instead of taking a form for your enemy to grasp, keep yourself adaptable and on the move. Accept the fact that nothing is certain and no law is fixed. The best way to protect yourself is to be a fluid, formless as water. Fluid and formless as water. Never bet on stability or lasting order. Everything changes. All right. The feeling of having. Okay, so this is the preface, which is before the book even starts. So we'll see what the preface is talking about, why not. The feeling of having no power over people and events is generally unbearable to us. When we feel helpless, we feel miserable. No one wants less power. Everyone wants more. In the world today, however, it is dangerous to seem too power hungry, to be overt with your power moves. We have to seem fair and decent. So we need to be subtle, conjugal yet cunning, democratic yet devious. This game of constant duplicity most resembles the power dynamic that existed in the scheming world of the old aristocrat court. Throughout history, a court has always formed itself around the person in power: king, queen, emperor, leader. The courtiers who filled this court were in an especially delicate position. They had to serve their masters, but if they seemed too fond, if they curried favor too obviously, the other courtiers around them would notice and would act against them. Attempts to win the master's favor then had to be subtle, and even skilled courtiers capable of such subtlety still had to protect themselves from their fellow courtiers who, at all moments, were scheming to push them aside. Meanwhile, the court was supposed to represent the height of civilization and refinement. Violent or overt power moves were frowned upon. Courtiers would work silently and secretly against any among them who used force. This was the courtier's dilemma. While appearing the very paragon of elegance, they had to outwit and thwart their own opponents in the subtlest of ways. The successful courtier learned over time to make all of his moves indirect. If he stabbed an opponent in the back, it was with a velvet glove on his hand and the sweetest of smiles on his face. Instead of using coercion or outright treachery, the perfect courtier got his way through seduction, charm, deception, and subtle strategy, always planning several moves ahead. Life in the court was a never-ending game that required constant vigilance and tactical thinking. It was civilized war. Today we face peculiarly similar paradox to that of the courtier. Everything must appear civilized, decent, democratic, and fair. But if we play by those rules too strictly, if we take them too literally, we are crushed by those around us who are not so foolish. As the great Renaissance diplomat and courtier Niccolo Machiavelli wrote, any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. The court imagined itself the pinnacle of refinement. Underneath its glittering surface, a cauldron of dark emotions, greed, envy, lust, hatred, boiled and simmered. Our world today similarly imagines itself the pinnacle of fairness, yet the same ugly emotions still stir within us, as they have forever. The game is the same. Outwardly, you must seem to respect the nicest necessities. The game is the same. Outwardly, you must seem to respect the necessities, but inwardly, unless you are a fool, you are a fool. You learn quickly to be prudent and to do as Napoleon advised. Place your iron hand inside a velvet glove. If, like the courtier of time gone by, you can master the arts of indirection, learning to seduce, charm, deceive, and subtle outmaneuver your opponents, you will attain the heights of power. You will be able to make people bend to your will without their realizing that you have what you have done. And if they do not realize what you have done, they will neither resent nor resist you. To some people, the notion of consciously playing power games, no matter how indirect, seem evil, a relic of the past. They believe they can opt out of the game by behaving in ways that have nothing to do with the power. You must beware of such people, for while they express such opinions outwardly, they are often among the most adept players at power. They utilize strategies that cleverly disguise the nature of the manipulation involved. These types, for example, will often display their weakness and lack of power as a kind of moral virtue. But true powerlessness, without any motive of self-interest, would not publicize its weakness to gain sympathy or respect. Making a show of one's weakness is actually a very effective strategy, subtle and deceptive, in the game of power. See Law 22, the surrender tactic. Another strategy of the supposed non-player is to demand equality in every area of life. Everyone must be treated alike, whatever their status and strength. But if, to avoid the taint of power, you attempt to treat everyone equally and fairly, you will confront the problem that some people do certain things better than others. Treating everyone equally means ignoring their differences, elevating the less skillful, and suppressing those who excel. Again, many of those who behave this way are actually deploying another power strategy. Sorry for my squeaky eye. Redistribution. Okay. Treating everyone equally means ignoring their differences, elevating the less skillful, and suppressing those who excel. Again, many of those who behave this way are actually deploying another power strategy, redistributing people's rewards in a way that they determine. Yet another way of avoiding the game would be perfect honesty and straightforwardness, since one of the main techniques of those who seek power is deceit and secrecy. But being perfectly honest will inevitably hurt and insult a great many people, some of whom will choose to injure you in return. No one will see your honest statement as completely objective and free of some personal motivation. and they will be right. In truth, the use of honesty is indeed a power strategy intended to convince people of one's noble, good hearted, selfless character. It is a form of persuasion, even a subtle form of coercion. Finally, those who claim to be non players may affect an air of naivety, naivety to protect them from the accusation that they are after power. Beware again, however, for the appearance of naivety can be an effective means of deceit. See Law 21. Seem dumber than you are, Mark. And feel like I got something spicy in my eye. Alright. Whoops. I'll see if anybody's even watching right now. Gotta wipe my nose. Got one person watching. Bro, it's like I touched my eye with a pepper or something, bro. I don't know why my shit burning. Alright. Gotta get that mic close for that narrator voice. And even genuine naivety is not free of the snares of power. Children may be naive in many ways, but they often act from an elemental need to gain control over those around them. Children suffer greatly from feeling powerless in the adult world, and they use any means available to get their way. Genuinely innocent people may still be played for power and are often horribly effective at the game, since they are not hindered by reflection. Once again, those who make a show or display of innocence are the least innocent of all. You can recognize these supposed non players by the way they flaunt their moral qualities, their pity, their exquisite sense of justice. But since all of us hunger for power and almost all of our actions are aimed at gaining it, the non players are merely throwing dust in our eyes, distracting us from their power plays with their air of moral superiority. If you observe them closely, you will see, in fact, that they are often the ones most skillful at indirect manipulation, even if some of them practice it unconsciously, and they greatly resent any publicizing of the tactics they use every day. If the world is like a giant scheming court and we are trapped inside it, there is no use in trying to opt out of the game. That will only render you powerless, and powerlessness will make you miserable. Instead of struggling against the inevitable, instead of arguing and whining and feeling guilty, it is far better to excel at power. In fact, the better you are at dealing with power, the better friend, lover, husband, wife, and person you become. By following the route of the perfect courtier, see Law 24, you learn to make others feel better about themselves, becoming a source of pleasure to them. They will grow dependent on your abilities and desirous of your presence. By mastering the 48 laws in this book, you spare others the pain that comes from bungling with power. by playing with fire without knowing its properties. If the game of power is inescapable, better to be an artist than a denier or a bungler. Learning the game of power requires a certain way of looking at the world, a shifting of perspective. It takes effort and years of practice, for much of the game may not come naturally. Certain basic skills are required, and once you master these skills, you'll be able to apply the laws of power more easily. The most important of these skills and power crucial foundation is the ability to master your emotions. An emotional response to a situation is the single greatest barrier to power, a mistake that will cost you a lot more than any temporary satisfaction you might gain by expressing your feelings. Emotions cloud reason, and if you cannot see the situation clearly, you cannot prepare for and respond to it with any degree of control. Anger is the most destructive of emotional responses, for it clouds your vision the most. It also has a ripple effect that invariably makes situations less controllable and heightens your enemy's resolve. If you are trying to destroy an enemy who has hurt you, far better to keep him off guard by feigning friendliness than showing your anger. So they got these little side notes. They don't seem that important. Just little side notes, really. Love and affection are also potentially destructive in that they blind you too often self-serving interest of those whom you least suspect of playing a power game. You cannot repress anger or love or avoid feeling them, and you should not try. But you should be careful about how you express them, and most important, they should never influence your plans and strategies in any way. Related to mastering your emotions is the ability to distance yourself from the present moment and think objectively about the past and future. Like Janus, the double-faced Roman deity and guardian of all gates and doorways, you must be able to look in both directions at once. The better to handle danger from whoever it comes. Such is the face you must create for yourself, one face looking continuously to the future and the other to the past. For the future, the motto is no days on alert. Nothing should catch you by surprise because you are constantly imagining problems before they arise. Instead of spending your time dreaming of your plan's happy ending, you must work on calculating every possible permutation and pitfall that might emerge in it. The further you see, the more steps ahead you plan, the more powerful you become. The other face of Janus looks constantly to the path, though not to remember past hurts or bear grudges that would only curb your power. Half of the game is learning how to forget those events in the past that eat away at you and cloud your reason. The real purpose of the backward glancing eye is to educate yourself constantly. You look at the past to learn from those who came before you. The many historical examples in this book will greatly help that process. Then, have looked to the past, you then having looked to the past, you look closer at hand to your own actions and those of your friends. This is the most vital school you can learn from because it comes from personal experience. You begin by examining the mistakes you have made in the past, the ones that have most grievously held you back. You analyze them in terms of the 48 laws of power, and you extract them from a lesson and oath. I shall never repeat such a mistake. I shall never fall into such a trap again. If you can evaluate and observe yourself in this way, you can learn to break the patterns of the past, an immensely valuable skill. Power requires the ability to play with appearances. To this end, you must learn to wear many masks and keep a bag full of deceptive tricks. Deception and masquerade should not be seen as ugly or immoral. All human interaction requires deception on many levels, and in some ways, what separates humans from animals in our ability to lie and deceive is our ability to lie and deceive. In Greek myths and India's Mahabharata cycle, in the Middle Eastern epic of Gilgamesh, it is the privilege of the gods to use deceptive arts. A great man, Odysseus, for instance, was judged by his ability to rival the craftiness of the gods, stealing some of their divine power by matching them in its wits and deception. Deception is a developed art of civilization and the most potent weapon in the game of power. You must succeed at deception unless you take a somewhat distanced approach to yourself, unless you can be many different people wearing the mask that day at the moment required. With such a flexible approach to all appearances, including your own, you lose a lot of the inward heaviness that holds people down. Make your face as malleable as the actors. Work to conceal your intentions from others. Practice luring people into traps. Playing with appearances and mastering the arts of deception are among the aesthetic pleasures of life. They are also key components in the acquisition of power. If deception is the most potent weapon in your arsenal, then patience in all things is your crucial shield. Patience will protect you from making moronic blunders. Like mastering your emotions, patience is a skill, but it does not come naturally. But nothing about power is natural. Power is more godlike than anything in the natural world. And patience is the supreme virtue of gods. Okay. If I gotta keep blowing my fucking nose, bro, I'm about to get pissed off. But I can't show emotion because I have power. And it's like I don't got nothing to blow, bro. I'm blowing nothing. Blowing nothing. Nothing's even on the toilet paper. Alright, where was I? Where was I? If deception is the most potent weapon in your arsenal, then patience in all things is a crucial shield. Patience is the supreme virtue of the gods. Okay. Like mastering your emotions. Okay, patience will protect you from making moronic blunders. Like mastering your emotions, patience is a skill. It does not come naturally. But nothing about power is natural. Power is more godlike than anything in the natural world, and patience is the supreme value of the gods who have nothing but time. Everything good will happen. The grass will grow again. If you give it time and see several steps into the future. Impatience, on the other hand, only makes you look weak. It is a principal impediment to power. Power is essentially immoral, and one of the most important skills to acquire is the ability to see circumstances rather than good or evil. Power is a game. This cannot be repeated too often. And in games, you do not judge your opponents by their intentions, but by the effect of their actions. You measure their strategies and their power by what you can see and feel. How often are someone's intentions made the issue only to cloud and deceive? What does it matter if another player, your friend or rival, intended good things and had only your interest at heart? If the effects of his actions lead to so much ruin and confusion, it is only natural for people to cover up their actions with all kinds of justifications, always assuming that they have acted out of goodness. You must learn to inwardly laugh each time you hear this and never get caught up in gauging someone's intentions and actions through a set of moral judgments that are really an excuse for the accumulation of power. Still clogging up even though I blew it. Not even like clogging up, like it's just doing dumb shit. It is a game. Your opponent sits opposite you. Both of you behave as gentlemen or ladies, observing the rules of the game and taking nothing personal. You play with a strategy and you observe your opponent's move with as much calmness as you can muster. In the end, you will appreciate the politeness of those who are playing with more than their good and sweet intentions. Train your eye to follow the results of their moves, the outward circumstances, and do not be distracted by anything else. Half of your mastery of power comes from what you do not do. Half of your mastery of power comes from what you do not do. Okay. Half of your mastery power comes from what you do not do, what you do not allow yourself to get dragged into. For this skill, you must learn to judge all things by what they cost you. As Nietzsche wrote, the value of a thing sometimes lies not in what one attains with it, but in what one pays for it, what it costs us. Perhaps you will attain your goal and a worthy goal at that, but at what price? Apply this standard to everything, including whether to collaborate with other people or come to their aid. In the end, life is short, opportunities are few, and you have only so much energy to draw on. And in the sense time, it is important to consider important it is as important a consideration as any other. Never waste valuable time or mental peace of mind on the affairs of others. That is too high a price to pay. Power is a social game. To learn and master it, you must develop the ability to study and understand people. As the great 17th century thinker and courtier Balthazar Gracian wrote, many people spend time studying the properties of animals or herbs. How much more important it would be to study those of people with whom we must live or die. To be a master player, you must also be a master psychologist. You must recognize motivations and see through the cloud of dust with which people surround their actions. An understanding of people's hidden motives is the single greatest piece of knowledge you can have in acquiring power. It opens up endless possibilities of deception, seduction, and manipulation. People are of infinite complexity, and you can spend a lifetime watching them without ever fully understanding them. So it is all the more important than to begin your education now. In doing so, you must also keep one principle in mind. Never discriminate as to whom you study and whom you trust. Never trust anyone completely and study everyone, including friends and loved ones. Finally, you must learn always to take the indirect route to power. Disguise your cunning like a billiard ball that carums several times before it hits its target. Your moves must be planned and developed in the least obvious way. By training yourself to be indirect, you can thrive in the modern court, appearing the paragon of decency while being the consummate manipulator. Consider the 48 Laws of Power a kind of handbook on the arts of indirection. The laws are based on the writings of men and women who have studied and mastered the game of power. These writings span a period of more than 3,000 years. Can't make this shit up. The laws The laws are based on the writings of men and women who have studied and mastered the game of power. These writings span a period of more than 3,000 years and were created in civilizations as desperate as ancient China and Renaissance Italy, yet they share common threads and themes together, hinting at an essence of power that has yet to be fully articulated. The 48 Laws of Power are the distillation of this accumulated wisdom gathered from the writings of the most illustrious strategists. Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, statesman Bismarck, Talleyrand, courtiers Castiglione, Gratian, seducers Ninon, Deleclos, Casanova, and con artists Yellow Kid Wheel in history. The laws have a simple premise: certain actions almost always increase one's power. The observance of the law, while others decrease it, and even ruin us, the transgression of law. These transgressions and observances are illustrated by historical examples. The laws are timeless and definitive. The 48 Laws of Power can be used in several ways. By reading the book straight through, you can learn about power in general, although several of the laws may not pertain directly to your life. In time, you will probably find that all of them have some applications and that in fact they are interrelated. By getting an overview of the entire subject, you will best be able to evaluate your own past actions and gain a greater degree of control over your immediate affairs. A thorough reading of the book will inspire thinking and reevaluation along after you finish it. The book has also been designed for browsing and for examining the law that seems at that particular moment most pertinent to you. Say you are expecting problems with a superior and cannot understand why your efforts have not led to more gratitude or promotion. Several laws specifically address the master underlying relationship, and you are almost certainly transgressing one of them. By browsing the initial paragraphs for the 48 laws in a table of contents, you can identify the pertinent law. Finally, the book can be browsed through and picked apart for entertainment, for an enjoyable ride through the foibles and great deeds of our predecessors in power. A warning, however, to those who use the book for this purpose: it might be better to turn back. Power is endlessly seductive and deceptive in its own way. It is a labyrinth. Your mind becomes consumed with solving its infinite problems, and you soon realize how pleasantly lost you have become. In other words, it becomes most amusing by taking it seriously. Do not be frivolous with such a critical matter. The gods of power frown on the frivolous. They give ultimate satisfaction only to those who study and reflect, and punish those who skim the surface looking for a good time. Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin, among the great number who are not good. Hence, A prince who wants to keep his authority must learn how not to be good and use that knowledge or refrain from using it as necessity requires. The Prince, Niccolo Machiavelli, 1469 through 1527. Never, Law 1, never outshine the master. We have officially started the book. Law 1, never outshine the master. Judgment. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior in your desire to please and impress them. Do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite. Inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. Transgression of the law. Alright, Law 1, never outshine the master. Nicholas Fouquet Louis the 14th's fiance, minister in the first years of the reign, was a generous man who loved lavish parties, pretty women, and poetry. He also loved money, for he led an extravagant lifestyle. Fouquet was clever and very much indispensable to the king, so when the prime minister Jules Mazarin died in 1661, the finance minister expected to be named the successor. Instead, the king decided to abolish the position. This and other signs made Fouquet suspect that he was falling out of favor, and so he decided to ingratiate himself with the king by staging the most spectacular party the world had ever seen. The party's ostensible purpose would be to commemorate the completion of Fouquet's chateau, Vaux-le-Vicomte, but its real functions was to pay tribute to the king, the guest of honor. The most brilliant nobility of Europe and some of the greatest minds of time, La Fontaine, La Rochefoucauld, Madame de Sauvagne, attended the party. Molière wrote a play for the occasion, in which he himself was to perform an evening's conclusion. The party began with a lavish 7-course meal featuring foods from Orient, never before tasted in France, as well as new dishes created especially for the night. The meal was accompanied with music and commissioned by Fouquet to honor the king. After dinner, there were a promenade through chateau gardens, the grounds of fountains of Vaux-le-Vicomte were to be the inspiration of Versailles. Fouquet, personally accompanied by the young king through the geometrically aligned arrangements of the shrubbery and flower beds. Arriving at the Guardians Canals, they witnessed a fireworks display, which was followed by the performance of Moliere's play. The party ran well into the night, and everyone agreed it was the most amazing affair that they ever attended. The next night, Fouquet, arrested by the king's head musketeer, D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan. 3 months later, he went on trial for stealing from the country's treasury. Parentheses, actually, most of the stealing he was accused of he had done on the king's behalf and with the king's permission. That's tragic. Fouquet was found guilty and sent to the most isolated prison in France, high in the Pyrenees Mountains, which he spent the last 20 years of his life in solitary confinement. Interpretation. Louis XIV, the Sun King, was a proud and arrogant man who wanted to be the center of attention at all times. He could not countenance being outdone and lavished by anyone, and certainly not his finest minister. To succeed Fouquet, Louis chose Jean-Baptiste Colbert, a man famous for his parsimony and for giving the dullest parties in Paris. Colbert made sure that any money liberated from the treasury went straight into Louis's hands. With the money, Louis built a palace even more magnificent than Fouquet, the glorious Palace of Versailles. He used the same architects, decorators, and garden designers. And at Versailles, Louis hosted parties even more extravagant than the one that cost Fouquet his freedom. Let us examine the situation the evening of the party, as Fouquet presented spectacle on spectacle to Louis, each more magnificent than the one before. He imagined the affair as demonstrating his loyalty and devotion to the king. Not only did he think the party would put him back in the king's favor, he thought it would show his good taste, his connections, and his popularity, making him indispensable to the king of the demonstrating and to the king and demonstrating that he would make an excellent prime minister. Instead, however, each new spectacle, each appreciative smile bestowed by the guest on Fouquet made it seem to Louis that his own friends and subjects were more charmed by the finance minister than by the king himself, and that Fouquet was actually flaunting his wealth and power rather than flattering Louis XIV. Fouquet's elaborate party offended the king's vanity. Louis would not admit this to anyone, of course. Instead, he found a convenient excuse to rid himself of a man who had advertently made him feel insecure. Such is the fate, in some form or another, of all those who unbalance the master's sense of self, poke holes in his vanity, or make him doubt his preeminence. When the evening began, Fouquet was at the top of the world. By the time it had ended, he was at the bottom. That was said by Voltaire, 1694 through 1778. Observance of the law. In the nearly 1600s, the Italian astronomer and mathematician. Okay, so, all right. So, before we move on, we're going to read the law real quick. So, what I just read about Nicolas Fouquet and Louis XIV is the transgression of the law. So, we're going to go over the law again. Never outshine the master. That's law 1. Judgment. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. in your desire to please and impress them. Do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite. Inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. So, what Fonquet did was he was flexing too hard, and he got put in solitary confinement for flexing too hard, pretty much. The king was pressed that Buddy was flexing too hard, and he didn't take too kindly to it, so he backdoored him. That's basically what happened. And yeah, that ties in. He wasn't making his master. He wasn't making his master feel above him or superior. He wasn't making his master feel superior. He was making his master feel insecure, because it was no longer being the Louis the 14th was no longer being celebrated, or he didn't feel like he was being celebrated. He felt like Fonquet was flexing, and he was just flexing way too hard for his liking. So, observance of the law. In the early 1600s, the Italian astronomer and mathematician Galileo found himself in a precarious position. He depended on the generosity of great rulers to support his research. And so, like all Renaissance scientists, he would sometimes make gifts of his inventions and discoveries to the leading patrons of the time. Once, for instance, he presented a military compass he had invented to the Duke of Gonzaga. Then he dedicated a book explaining the use of the compass to the Medicis. Both rulers were grateful, and through them, Galileo was able to find more students to teach. No matter how great the discovery, however, his patrons usually paid him with gifts, not cash. This made for a life of constant insecurities and dependence. There must be an easier way, he thought. Okay. Getting a little, my neck hurting. And we only on page 3. Yeah, I didn't take my nap today. I usually take a nap when I get off. Did not take that nap. So I think we're gonna finish this. Ooh wee. Fuck, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna finish this. I don't know if we're gonna finish this story, bro. I got a good 4 pages just to finish. Well, okay, maybe. Alright, I don't know. We'll finish this story real quick. Galileo hit on a new strategy in 1610 when he discovered the moons of Jupiter. Instead of dividing the discoveries among his patrons, giving one the telescope he had used, dedicated a book to another, and so on. As he had done in the past, he decided to focus exclusively on the Medicis. He chose the Medicis for one reason. Shortly after Cosimo I had established in the Medici dynasty in 1540, he had made Jupiter the mightiest of the gods, the Medici symbol, a symbol of power that went beyond politics and banking. One link to ancient Rome and its divinities. Galileo turned his discovery of Jupiter's moon into a cosmic event, honoring the Medici's greatness. Shortly after discovery, he announced that the bright stars, the moons of Jupiter, offered themselves in the heavens to his telescope at the same time as Cosmos the second. Enthronement. He said that the number of the moons, four, harmonized with the number of the Medicis. Cosmos II had three brothers, and that the moons orbited Jupiter as these four suns revolved around Cosmos I, the dynasty's founder. More than coincidence, this showed that the heavens themselves reflected the ascendancy of the Medici family. After he dedicated the discovery to the Medicis, Galileo commissioned an emblem representing Jupiter sitting on a cloud with the four stars circling about him, and presented this to Cosmos II as a symbol of his link to the stars. In 1610, Cosmos II made Galileo his official court philosopher and mathematician with a full salary. For a scientist, this was the cope of a lifetime. The days of begging for patronage were over. Interpretation. In one stroke, Galileo gained more with his new strategy than he had in years of begging. The reason is simple. All masters want to appear more brilliant than other people. They do not care about science or empirical truth or the latest invention. They care about their name and their glory. Galileo gave the Medici infinitely more glory by linking their name with cosmic forces than he had by making them the patrons of some new scientific gadget or discovery. Scientists are not spared the vagaries of court life and patronage. They too must serve masters who hold to pursue the purse strings, and their great intellectual powers can make the master feel insecure, as if he were only there to supply the funds, an ugly, ignoble job. The producer of a great work wants to feel he is more than just the provider of the financing. He wants to appear creative and powerful, and also more important than the work produced in his name. Instead of insecurity, you must give him glory. Galileo did not challenge the intellectual authority of the Medicis with his discovery, or make them feel inferior in any way. By literally aligning them with the stars, he made them shine brilliantly among the courts of Italy. He did not outshine the masters, he made the master outshine all others. So basically, Galileo, instead of trying to sell his discoveries to everyone, he found the plug and basically told him, like, so instead of Galileo selling his discoveries to everyone, he found the plug. He told him, like, boom, we can work together. We can turn this into a business. I found something. You can be a part of that something. And we can put you in the history books. Some shit like that. Either way, made him feel good, made him feel like he was smart. When really he ain't smart. But alright. That's the end of this read along. Even though we're only on page 4. We did a lot of pages today. Shit, besides those 4 pages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The preface was 7 pages. And then we have the pages just of reading the laws. A couple more pages, you know. But we'll get back to it, man. I'd say I'm enjoying it. We're gonna get back to it. We'll leave the book right here. We're either gonna read that next time, or I got a couple more books that I can read. And we're gonna get after it. Get this knowledge in circulation. It is 10 o'clock. That is outrageous. Alright, maybe I'll do some reaction videos real quick. We'll see. I heard those Nigerian auditions with Drewski wasn't that interesting, so we might have to see for ourselves.